So this is an incredible gospel. I mean, this is rock star gospel. And I had the 7:30 Mass this morning. I mean the 4:30 Mass. I mean the 7:30 Mass. It's all the same thing when anyone gets up at that outrageous time of day to do Mass. I mean, it's kind of got to be nuts for these people. Holy cow. You know, I never think about canceling the 7:30 Mass until I have the 7:30 Mass. You know, if Father Dale wants to get up before people are supposed to be awake, that's fine. If we send the kid out there, Father Muir, he can do it. I don't know. But when you make the boss go out there and do it, it's sort of like, maybe we need to change this Mass. But we won't. Don't worry. Don't let rumors spread that I'm changing the 7:30 Mass. Those are a lot of older people there, and they will hunt me down and like have torches outside of the rectory. This is a great, great gospel. And it's a great gospel for a bunch of reasons. And all of these reasons connect directly to you and I. First reason. So Jesus is 2 days away, and Lazarus is dying. And Jesus knows he's dying. He knows it. More importantly, Jesus then knows that he has died. He is gone. I mean, I'm reminded of the first pages of the book A Christmas Carol. You know, Marley was dead for 8 years. This must be fully understood or the story has no meaning. It's just like that here, only much more important. Christ knows he's dead. Hey, do I have any of my 8th graders here who took their confirmation exam last week? Don't be a coward. Don't be a coward. Stand up. Stand up. Well, there you are. Okay, and I got another one over here. Where are you? I know, yeah. We got 2 more here. And I've got, yeah, there. I knew you were there. All right, okay. So all these worthy targets, sit down. I'm going to show mercy on all of you. They all did exceptionally well last week. I mean, we're talking rock star city. Really, really well. In fact, I never had a class do this well. I can't tell you how proud I am of our 8th grade teachers and our 8th graders and Mrs. Walker for getting our religious education 8th graders all set for confirmation. I mean, this class is like, it's supremo. But one of the things they learned was that the reason why Christ was able to be able to say, I know Lazarus is dead, is because Christ is, 8th graders, where are you? Yeah. He is God, correct. Christ is God. He is the second person of the divine Trinity. He is God himself. And so sometimes we think of him just as the Son of God or as Jesus. But we have to understand that Jesus, the second person of the Trinity, before we called him Jesus, always existed. Remember what he said in Luke's Gospel. I was there and saw Satan fall from the sky like lightning. What does that mean? It means he was there when the battle of the angels took place and Lucifer rebelled against the Father. The Son always was. He is begotten of the Father. He is homoousios, of the same substance of the Father. He is God. Must understand that if you're Catholic. Jesus is God. And so he knew everything. And he knew his buddy Lazarus had died. Now, who was this Lazarus guy? Well, we all remember Mary and Martha. And do you notice in this one, we kind of redeem Martha. Remember in the last one, Martha's complaining that Mary's not helping out in the kitchen? Remember that gospel? Hey, Jesus, won't you tell Mary to stop anointing you and drying off your feet with her beautiful hair? Why don't you get her to get her bunions over here into the kitchen and help me out, right? And what does Jesus say? Hey, Martha, shut up. You don't know how lucky Mary is to do what she is doing. Why? Because wouldn't it be the greatest honor of all to anoint God? Yesterday, Mrs. Walker had all of my religious education second graders come in here for their retreat, and my St. Mary's second graders for their retreat, because they're going to receive First Holy Communion pretty soon. And before that, they're going to help Father out for the huge Mass of Holy Thursday, the Mass of the Last Supper, when we're going to wash feet together. I'm going to do the washing, of course, and they're going to help me out by handing towels and pitchers and things like that. And it's really, really wonderful. Well, they were here yesterday with their moms and dads, just like part one was last weekend with the other half of our classes. And we had our 5-minute adoration rite with Jesus on the altar. But before that, for my religious education kids, because they hadn't had a tour of the church that I give to the St. Mary's kids in the beginning of the year, we went up one by one, just like I told you last week with the part one group, and met Jesus in the tabernacle. They got to look into God's face. Isn't that amazing? So, that's our faith. That's the first part of this gospel that's just so important. He knows his friend is dead. Now, does he run quickly to his friend Lazarus' side? No. He waits a couple more days, knowing that it's going to become even more dramatic the longer that Lazarus stays in the tomb. Now, remember, back then, they didn't have funeral homes. So you just took the person who died and put them in kind of a cave, and you put a stone in front of it. Now, why did you do that? It was close to the village, but sort of far away. Because okay? Because you're going to have the normal body processes going on, and they didn't want to be close. Now, after 4 days in 100-degree weather with a massive amount of humidity, boys and girls, this was going to be ugly. And Jesus shows up, and he walks up to the tomb. And then, now I'm really bummed out because the translation used to be, Lazarus, come forth. And I always wanted to say that as a priest. Okay? I probably would have said it like 4 times in the gospel. Lazarus, come forth. But they changed the words on me, so now it's, Lazarus, come out, and you can't do that James Earl Jones voice the same way. But Lazarus comes out. Death is defeated. Now, I want you to think, if you're wondering what this gospel means to each of us, let me repeat that. Death is defeated. This is a precursor to the resurrection story. Of course, in the resurrection, eternity is saved. Jesus rises forever. In this story, Lazarus simply rises, but guess what? Unlike us, Lazarus is the only dude who ever is born once and dies twice. And by the way, rises twice. The second time for good. So think about that for a second. Lazarus' story is so important to us because it's our story. Jesus wants to show everyone that he's God. Now, they still don't get it. They still don't get it. And they will doubt him, and most of them, when he goes on in his ministry a week from now, they will greet him like a king on Palm Sunday, and then they will all run away in 4 different directions and betray him. And then they will kill him. And what will he say from the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And he says the same thing for us. Jesus the Christ, the King of the universe, allows Lazarus more life, not because he loves Lazarus. He does. It's his Goomba. It's his friend. He loves this family. They're as tight as you are with your really good friends down the street or next door. This is one of those great bonded friendships. Remember, Jesus was just like us. He had pals. He had friends. He had people he was close to. He laughed. He cried. And now the really important part of this gospel, the part maybe you missed, the part maybe you didn't give a lot of emphasis to. Jesus does something before he brings Lazarus back to life. Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Why is this so important? Well, as my 8th graders could tell you, Jesus, unlike the Father and the Spirit, the Son has not one but two natures. One of them is divine, just like the Spirit, just like the Father. But the second one is human. Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine. I love saying that in front of engineers. It drives them crazy. He's totally human. He is totally like us, except for sin. And that's so important, because when we need him, when we're in trouble, when we have sinned horribly, when we have done things we know Jesus doesn't want us to do, when we've had the worst day of our life, there is Jesus, his hand out, waiting to show mercy. Waiting to show mercy. Jesus wept. Each of us in our lifetime, unless we need real help, has wept. I am man enough to admit that in my lifetime I have wept. Remember, wept doesn't just mean crying. It means when you got the shower on and it's uncontrollably coming out of you. When my mom died, when my dad died, when my last dog, my beagle Sparky, died, and I was studying canon law in Washington. He was an old dog, but had gone all over the world with me. I wept. Jesus wept. He felt so much for his friend Lazarus. His human nature allowed him to weep. And then he stepped back and, using his divinity, raises someone from the dead. Wow. By the way, did you notice the little conversation between the father and son going on while this is happening? He says to his dad, "Hey, Dad, I know you're always with me, but I'm just saying this out loud so these doubting people will understand what I'm doing and that I really am going to defeat death." Isn't that incredible? He goes out of his way to do that for us. Now, what do we have to do for him? What do we have to do for Jesus? Well, let me tell you a little story, because you guys are doing it. Yesterday, they finally gave me a Saturday afternoon off. It was great. I got to go down, Smokey Bear was unavailable, so I got to go down to the Capuchins and go to confession. It was great. And then anytime you go down to the Capuchins to get confession, you're able to get one of those awesome tuna sandwiches they sell down there. I don't know if you've ever gotten one of these monsters, but these are really, really good sandwiches, okay? And this time I spoiled myself and I got a whole sandwich and a Diet Verner's. I was in paradise. So I'm driving back down, I get to the house, and I stop in here to make sure that we got enough coverage for confessions. The kid's in the box over there. Father Muir, he's in the box. And he's got a decent line, but not too much. You know, young people nowadays are a little lazy, so I have to make sure he's okay, you know. And then I went back to the house, turned the fireplace on. I'm sitting there with Pluto Dog. Life is perfect. And then the bat phone rings. Father, 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 come here, hurry up, hurry up. Father Muir is overwhelmed, there's too many people. Age and experience always outguns youth and effervescence. So I come over, turn the light on, and I must have taken care of 50 people in an hour. Isn't it beautiful? We know what we have to do. We have to say, I'm sorry. We have to accept God's mercy. And that's what's happening at this parish. That's what we hope happens throughout society, where people are able to put their own hubris aside and be humble. You know, that kind of hubris that causes you to sneak your car in, as someone did to me yesterday, when I'm in the third lane and there's someone in the second lane and I'm doing 79 miles an hour and Jack Wagon decides he has to cut through and kill everyone. And then you have a choice of either slowing down and letting him in or causing a 17-car accident, because that's the society we live in today. But we have to humble ourselves. Once a year at least, we have to come to God and say, I'm sorry, and do our Easter duty. And that's what you guys are doing. That's what we're supposed to do. It's not like some great exceptional thing that's just been thrust in your life. It's been the rule of the church for 2,000 years. And we do that because we need him. We need him close to us. And if he's close to us, and if he walks with us, he's going to do the same thing that he did to Lazarus for us. Only when it happens to us, it's permanent. Every time I do a funeral in here and celebrate a funeral mass, and here is the coffin right here on Peter's keys, I think to myself of the words of this gospel. Every single funeral I do, I can hear Jesus yelling out to the person in the coffin, Charlie, come forth. Sally, come forth. Cynthia, come forth. Jeffrey, come forth. And there their soul comes forth and goes to its maker. That's why we come to Mass. That's why we treat people decently. That's why we live the way of Jesus the Christ. And if we do that, if we treat our workers fairly, if we're generous and kind, if we watch out for our neighbor, if we put ourselves second and others first, there will be Jesus. Bill, come forth. Elizabeth, come forth. William, come forth. John, and I hope I hear that someday, come forth. Because if we do that, then we too will have eternal salvation. We will be the dear friends of Jesus, just like Lazarus. And when we're going through the tough times in life, when you're with your honey in an ICU room at a hospital, holding their hand and begging God, please God, not yet, there will be Christ next to you, weeping, because he loves you so dearly. So today, all of us, let's remember to act more like Martha and more like Mary. Notice how unquestioning they were. Both of them greet Jesus the same way. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And by the way, we know that's right because Jesus says, isn't it great that I wasn't there? Because if he had been there, he would have healed Lazarus, and Lazarus would have never died. But instead, he wants Lazarus to die so that he can be raised. The message today, ladies and gentlemen, is death has no sting when it comes to the followers of Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ in his own resurrection has defeated death permanently.